Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market. It's our daily show from Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. GMT, where we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make an astounding amount of money on the internet. I'm your host, Bchek. I'm joined by my legendary co-hosts, Legendary and Sammy. And we're going to get into everything that's happening in the NFT and crypto market in just a little bit. But before we do, friends, just a reminder that we do not know anything for sure. This is not financial advice. Please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment in an exceptionally risky environment. With that out of the way, Legendary, it is Wednesday. It is the 10th of April. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
GM, quite excited about a couple of things. First of all, I had a fantastic dinner yesterday with Kodama, went to a lovely steakhouse.
Ooh.
And spoke about crypto all night until one of the waiters there, shout out to him, walked up to us and asking, "Oh, you guys are in crypto?" He is invested as well. Talked about L2s, talked about Polygon. He asked about the where we get our news from. I was saying, "Oh, I'm running with you guys a daily news show." He's like, "Are you guys on YouTube?" I was like, "Yeah, actually, I'm a YouTuber now somehow," which I never really clocked. And he's like, "Cool, you got a new subscriber." So shout out to him for that. On the one hand, on the other hand, also very, very big day for the modern market. We had the partnership announcement up yesterday with Mintify as a flagship milestone. I would say. Obviously, we've been rocking at least Sam and I the Mintify badges for a while, so we've been involved on that end. But it's very, very satisfying to see that partnership come to fruition with them.
For sure. Definitely. Before we get to that, because I would like to reflect on that for just a moment. Have you ever actually, I've never actually heard us considered as YouTubers. Like, I know we publish to YouTube, but it's just funny to think of ourselves as YouTubers. How did you feel when he was like, "Are you a YouTuber?"
I mean, I felt like a LARP, to be honest, because I don't like I'm a lot of things, but I don't feel like I'm a YouTuber. I'm just streaming stuff to there. I'm not even doing it. You're doing the technical setup. I'm just a passive YouTube LARP and has his face on the platform. But yeah,
We are YouTubers now. What can we say? Interesting. You did also mention the Mintify partnership. I agree, man. It's pretty exciting. Like, how did you feel putting that tweet out? You wrote a tweet about it. I wrote a tweet about it. It's obviously been a long journey for us since what, May or April 2023. We always seem to start things in the depths of the bear market, like our first business together, airdrop season. Literally, as the market was collapsing, we decided to to launch a business, which ironically, or not ironically, probably the wrong word to use there, would be a fantastic business like right now. Do you know what I mean? Like, it would have been so good if everyone actually signed up to that business idea back when we did it a quarter of the way through 2023. It'd be absolutely printing. um, but that's just the way these things go and the way attention goes. How did you feel putting that tweet out yesterday and announcing the strategic partnership with Mintify?
yeah, pretty good because it feels completely different in my opinion. Like one thing is hitting big on an investment, hitting big on an airdrop, which is something that like you have in like obviously you get lucky with an investment, you farmed an airdrop and get rewarded for that, but that's to me completely different, those kind of like degen activities, as to like building a real media business with the modern market and actually seeing that that reward flowing in and that partnership and the trust that is being put in us as a platform. Like that feels completely different to a like quote unquote degen win in the space.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's just a different win. Like, it's not, I mean, it's nice that there's money involved, and that's obviously important for us as a business. Um, but you're right, it's completely separate to that. It's about reputation. It's about someone betting on you for the long term. Because as I put out in my tweet, one of the things we've always tried to establish since the beginning, really, from a personal perspective and for the company perspective, like, we don't do one-off integrations, don't do one-off content. If you want to work with me, if you want to work with us, it's going to be like multi-layered, multi-month every single time, because in our experience, any one-off integration with anyone is like, it's not a good experience for the listener. It's not a good experience for any of the audience to hear someone try to sell them something like on one day to sell out 2 days later. It's just not been a good experience. And I know that because I watched a lot of the other media, and it just doesn't feel good as an audience member. So we want to try to find people we align with over a longer period of time, so that partnership feels more natural and feels like it's actually beneficial to every single person, including the most important people, which is our audience. That's my reflection on that. Sammy, how did you feel about it? Mintify, obviously super important. You've been and kind of partnered with them also for quite some time, using their data. And how do you feel about being a YouTuber now as well, actually?
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself a YouTuber. I think similar to Legendary, I do that through you. I think that X is probably the main platform, and it's a completely different algorithm. I don't know how. I wouldn't know where to start with YouTube, so it'd take me a while just to get to grips with it personally. So, but I'm happy to be called one. I feel like a LARP, but needs must. But yeah, the Mintify stuff. I mean, we've been working directly with Evan for some time, and I think it just makes sense in terms of being on brand. I think they have a great platform now across three different chains: Base, Blast, ETH. And I think for me personally, I've come from an analytics background, so I worked with Origins, which was a similar sort of protocol. And I think Mintify have taken it one step further and actually come to market in a stronger way, and it's a better product. And I'm bullish for what's to come. So it's great to be partnered with something that is probably going to be a game changer for the market.
Yeah, I love it. Love that perspective. As you said, super happy to be partnered with people and Evan on a very a long-term vision on something that's very important to us. So stay tuned, actually, because that's the one important announcement that we've made yesterday. We've got more. It's just one of those things. When it rains, it absolutely pours. It's like it's Airdrop April. It's also Partnership April. We've literally got another one announced in the next couple of days, and maybe another one as well. So that's pretty exciting. Legendary, quick reflection from you there before we hit the headlines, get everyone into the news today.
Yeah, one quick reflection and one more additional clapping our own back on that. Ooh. Is the statistic that you put out on our average or median Spotify listening time. Obviously, average show 55 minutes long because we cut off that intro music for Spotify, and median listening time is 46 minutes. So essentially, I think people just skip the end and skip the small talk in the beginning. Essentially, 86% of people, 86% of the show gets listened to, and that's way more than like a typical YouTube video, etc. So this kind of is confirming for me that we're like audience centric and not making the show about ourselves. But probably if we had to skip anything, it would be exactly those 5 minutes in the beginning where we chat and have that personal convo, which it seems people do not care about as much as the rest of the show. So I shut up and let you get to it.
Yeah, well, let's monitor that data. We'll monitor the data as we go. I still like the little chit chat at the beginning. But as you say, let's get to the show. We've got all kinds of stuff packed in for today. As always, this news comes to you from the snapshot, which is pinned up top. Let's get to it. If you find it brings you some value today, please do give it a like. So starting with some price action, we've got crypto down just a touch. Bitcoin's at 69K, down a couple of percent. ETH at 3.5, down 3%. Solana at $171, down 2%. Headlines for today: Eigenlayer mainnet goes live with $13 billion TVL now. Franklin Templeton wrote a note on Eigenlayer calling it the black hole of Ethereum. We've been speaking about this idea that all of this ETH, yes, technically there's all this supply, it's all going to disappear into restaking and staking and into Eigenlayer and the various other people that take ETH and put it into Eigenlayer as well. So interesting to talk about that for a little bit. Number two, Bitcoin ordinals stay hot as blob rises to 0.047 Bitcoin after free distribution. We'll want to touch on that. Ordinals still hot at the moment. And finally, Zeta trading platform Solana announces 10% token distribution to community incoming. We're going to touch on that, but also more broadly, just the general airdrop season that's taking place. As always, it's just so wild at the moment. We want to kind of take stock, figure out what's coming, what's not coming, how to organize ourselves. So we'll have a conversation around that. Getting into some notable sales, we had a FIWO selling FIWO called Hurt Feelings selling for 25 ETH. interesting story there. That was a loan given by Cyrus to a very prominent art collector in the space who was messaging him to say, I'm not going to pay you back on this one, but I'll buy it back off you for like, and then really undercut him and said 4 ETH or something ludicrous. He said, no way, I'm just going to put it up on the market for loads more. And it sold. So he made a big profit in the end from his loan. Number 2, Xcopy Instabag selling for 27 ETH. A lot of Xcopy moving at the moment. Big run on Xcopy work. And Memeland MVP selling for 55 ETH. Remember, that's the premier NFT in the Memeland ecosystem. Some floor prices in NFTs. CryptoPunks are at 42 still. Bored Apes at 12.3. Mutants at 2.1. DGods at 1.5. Captains at 3.5, up 5%. Azuki's at 4.1. Penguins up 5%, also at 12.4. Madlands up 6% at 135 Sol. And the Nouns winning bid was at 7.5 ETH. Legendary. That is the price action. Those are the headlines. Anything catching your eye in particular at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. If we also look at the heat map on Mintify, there is Today the Game, which minted to the top right, the Ancient Seeds that minted yesterday, AI-based gaming project, came out at a free mint, 777 supply, came out at 1.6 ETH and has stabilized at 1.37 ETH floor, so pretty impressive performance on that. Seems like there's still a lot of demand in the gaming sector, and Today the Game was definitely on the more hype side of things.
So is this another one of those occasions where, okay, fine, free mint, whitelist, gaming, but is it a token play bet? Like, yes, there's this NFT, but is the idea that you're going to get some tokens relatively soon? Because that's how the gaming NFT ecosystem has been working out recently.
I don't know about their TGE plans yet, so I cannot comment on that.
Sure. Okay. Well, without knowing many more details than what Legendary just said, that would be my bet, because otherwise I would imagine it very difficult to come out from a free mint and just teleport to 1.3. Admittedly, the supply is very small, so that is a something to take consideration of. Something I noticed here, Sammy, is that Mochaverse is down 9%. Wonder if you could speak to that. I saw on the timeline that one bit large holder, I think, dumped like a significant amount. On the one hand, some people were suggesting, does this mean someone's done the maths and like figured out the token? I don't think the tokenomics are public yet, but have they done the maths and thought, okay, this TGE coming or the token isn't going to be worth it with this amount that I've got? Alternatively, it's just like, well, if you're up so much at the moment and you just want to take some risk off the table or just sell it for ETH right here, right now, that could be a legitimate play too. Do you know anything more here? What are your thoughts on Mochaverse being down 9 in advance of the token, the TG coming relatively soon?
I mean, I probably can't speculate on price being part of the team. So, well, not part of the team, but like an ambassador, research and resident. So, but I mean, just looking at the timeline, you can see that some people are unhappy about potential lockup investing, like vesting schedules and things like that, which I suspect, I don't think they've released that yet, but like what it's going to be. But there's obviously a lot of speculation. People are going off word of mouth. There's going to be a lot of changing hands with like lockup of liquidity within these NFTs. So it wouldn't surprise me that people start to take profits and there'll be a bit of price action based on that, but nothing's been confirmed yet. So I'm personally still staking mine, and I probably will continue to do so. So
yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, what I did see and what I do know was public is that they did share roughly the public sale details, and they seemed fine to me. I don't know if people have other information, but the public sale details which I saw was that, I can't remember the precise details, but the point was that they were better than every other kind of investor prior. So say if you were a seed investor into Mochaverse or Animoca, whichever entity is in charge of this, you might have like a 1-year lockup, and then you start vesting. But the public sale is like well in advance of that. You also get some TGE, a percentage at TGE, which will be higher than the people who have kind of invested before you. So like, it's better than other people, but I don't know whether people are so impatient in this space that they're like, well, if I'm not going to get everything right here, right now, then maybe it's not worth it.
Yeah, I do think though, I mean, they didn't need to do the community raise. I think, I mean, having raised 31.88 million, they have sufficient capital to to bring what they want to do to market. I think the community raise is effectively giving back to their most loyal people. So whether that through those that have accumulated those realm points, or those that have the actual Mockaverse NFT that are considered partners, all those allocations. I know there's a bit of concern around the KYC process. Obviously, I think the UK is excluded, and a few other places have been excluded from that for the public sale. But there are airdrops that are going to be happening for Mocha NFT holders and those that have sufficient realm points. So
interesting. Okay, so various things going on, as always, with any airdrop when it comes to discussing and debating the various allocations. So thanks for that perspective, Sammy. Any other reflections from you, Legendary, before we hit the headlines?
Let's get into the headlines. The other reflections I had are around block games, but that ties into airdrop season.
Okay, let's do it then. Let's get straight into airdrop season. We're talking about Airdrop April. And so we saw Zeta, which is a trading platform. Let me just find the tweet. I'm going to share it with people who are watching in on YouTube, on X video. We had Zeta, which is a trading platform on Solana, announcing their token coming soon. They have, let's see, their little allocation. So there's going to be 1 billion tokens. Initial distribution is 10%. All of this stuff's becoming fairly routine now. One thing I have noticed is that people are never telling you just, right, it's happening and it's going to happen tomorrow. They're telling you weeks in advance so that you can like go over, provide your liquidity, help them earn more fees. That's a trend that I'm noticing. In addition to that, we have D-Bridge announcing points. For people who don't know, D-Bridge is a bridge me and Legendary have been using for years. I think at this point, it connects different chains together. They announced their point system, which I hope includes historical activity, but probably not, given that they people want to incentivize new activity. They say points will play a crucial role in handing power over to our active and loyal community. We've designed the program to recognize our earliest community members. Okay, maybe that's good. While welcoming anyone who's just joining the fam. So 100 points for every $1 paid in fees to the D-Bridge protocol. As usual, similar kind of point system. We're very familiar with that now. The more points you get, the more potential airdrop allocation you will get. Legendary, those are 2 that we've just noticed in the last 24 hours. Maybe if you mention 2 more on your horizon and what your thoughts are on these 2 in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Parcl is another relevant airdrop. They just had the final, so there were 2 final snapshots. As it is an attention matter. You need more steps to extend the attention. There was a final snapshot for the points. Then they took another week to basically calculate the final leaderboard. And in that period, if you did not withdraw the money from the platform, there was the additional loyalty snapshot that gave you a boost on the points that you had farmed after the final snapshot. So as you say, the timeframes increase, airdrops get announced so that there's more time to farm liquidity. And it seems like this meta projects realize that there's a lot of attention flowing around and being divided across different airdrops. And you try to do what you can to extend the time frame that people keep their funds locked up in your protocol, and maybe design incentive to have that extended beyond that amount of time even. And then the other one that I wanted to touch on before, block games, we have the TGE absolutely imminent, and we had a bit of FUD on the timeline that also I think had reflected on the floor prices, that the farmers, the social farmers, were complaining, being not too happy with the outcome, posting loads and loads of screenshots that basically they had 600,000 millions of points, whatever the amount was. So pretty active farming, and only got a handful of tokens, a couple dozen, 100, 140 tokens for that. So definitely one of the worst outcomes for social farming. And I feel like that social farming is now basically shaping up to be so similar to like regular airdrop farming, where basically we've been in this airdrop game for years, right? And you never know what's going to hit and how it's going to hit. You have airdrops that scale up linearly, that work very well for the whales. And you have things that are more designed in a way to reward smaller accounts, aka reward Sybil accounts, where it's just the better play to have 1 ETH, say take 1 ETH as a measure, divided across 10 wallets and farm that as a Sybil, which obviously is not a good thing, but it's not designed to reward Sybils. It's designed to reward small accounts, but it just happens that people who multi-account are being rewarded more. And then you have the things that are being rewarded just linearly across the TVL or money that you put in. Final side note on that. Obviously, you know, I'm pretty active on YOLO games, and there's been a discussion yesterday in the Discord. Will the airdrop be tiered, or will it progress linearly with your volume wagered? And the founder, Bruce Wayne, immediately responded, there's obviously not going to be any kind of tier. It's just going to correlate to your points, because otherwise I would be afraid for the safety of my family. He basically upset a bunch of psychopathic, angry gamblers who have wagered millions or tens of millions on your platform. So he's very well aware of how his platform works and who it appeals to.
Okay, so that's really, really interesting. It does seem to, that what you just brought up, and I want to double click on that because I think that's important. I'm going to go to Sammy as well to get his reflections on Airdrop April. The key question at the moment for people trying to consider which protocols to use. Well, I think the first point to make is use protocols that you think are good, quite as naturally as possible. And that's where you'll get something, right? You'll get whatever you deserve. But the key question that I guess you're asking, or that's come to emerge as the key question, is the distribution linear or is it tiered? Can you just explain the difference between linear and tiered, just in case anyone's just like, what are these two things, and why is one so much better than the other, or is one better than the other?
Me to explain, or Sammy?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, happy to do so. So linear progression would be if I put in 1 ETH and NFT Stats puts in 10 ETH.
NFT Stats.
Yeah, he is whaling me out on that specific protocol, and then he collects 10 times the point than I did, because that progresses linearly, and he would also then make 10 times the airdrop of whatever amount I would have made. Tiered would be what, for example, LooksRare did. This is why YOLO people were so afraid, because it's the same team. They looked at trading volume on OpenSea when they did their airdrop and divided that in, I think it was 10 tiers, and they were like brackets. If your trading volume was 0 to 1 ETH, you get this amount, fixed amount of tokens. If it's 10 to 50 ETH, you get that amount, and so on and so forth. And you would typically design a system like that to reward the lower end, like the smaller farmers, the smaller trading volume more, in a way how Tensor did it. Whereas with the linear one, you reward, in theory, everyone equally, but obviously you don't cap off whales, and they have a bigger incentive to put more funds in with your protocol and not be afraid of getting less than if they had split it across multiple wallets.
Perfect. I think that's the really helpful explanation. And I guess the follow on from that is the challenge, obviously, is that no one knows, right? People are betting huge amounts of capital, or wagering huge amounts of capital, not knowing if something is going to be linear or if something is going to be tiered. And is it fair to say, Legendary, that in your experience over the years of participating in protocols and trying to figure out the reward systems, that it's completely common to not know? Is it reasonable to ask the founder and ask them to tell you? And if they don't tell you, is that cool? Is it not cool? What's your sense of how, like, what the social norms are there?
You can always ask, but in most cases, you won't really know. There's some protocols who have been speaking about it publicly. There's protocols with obviously being giving that info to maybe the largest depositors. Like if you want to be, I don't know, a Justin Sun and deposit 20 mil into a restaking protocol, you might ask about that info and you might get that info. If you are someone who wants to put in 0.5 ETH or 2 ETH, and that info is not public, you probably won't get it. There's no harm in asking, but it's definitely not common practice that you know it. There's ways to figure it out sometimes. There's been founders who said, oh, if I think about my own airdrop, I liked how Jito worked out as an airdrop. I think that's someone from the Parcl team had said at one point, and G2 was rewarding the smaller ones, minimum 1 SOL deposit, and you got that 7K tokens. So it's not common practice. Sometimes there are hints and clues. You can always ask. Sometimes you get an answer, as with Bruce Wayne in YOLO games, and sometimes it's like really, really obvious that, yeah, if you have 50 people doing 90% of the volume on your protocol, you don't want to piss off basically 90% of your capital base by tiering an airdrop.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Thanks for that explanation. I think that's very helpful. Tom Taylor in the comments, Sammy, maybe you can come back to this. Says tiered feels fairer for the smaller farmers, but obviously impacts the top few hundred massively. Reward your whales or all. I think it might be a typo there, but in general, the idea is that, like, what's your sense, Sammy? Are you ultimately on the side of the G2 one where you're like, okay, you're tiered and more people might be happy, but the top people are a little bit annoyed, versus the other? Do you think there's a preference? Any particular stance on that?
I think it depends on the protocol. Like, it depends on the outcomes or the objectives of what they want to achieve. If they ultimately want to achieve maximum TVL for that protocol, whether it's a lending protocol, then I think linear makes sense. But if you want to achieve lots of users on the platform, it makes sense to go with a tiered approach, because you're more likely to get a bigger user base.
Yeah.
There is a way that you can kind of, as a farmer, you can kind of statistically, you can probably hedge against that by having several larger accounts. So at least you hit the upper tiers on several accounts, as opposed to like only hitting on one and then capping it out. So I think with that, you can effectively still hit on the linear thing if it does happen, because you'll have the same amount of TVL just split across several accounts. But then you reduce the risk of being capped on a tiered approach. So there is ways of hedging against it if you are farming. And I think that the Sybil thing, that's not to say that you have 20 separate accounts doing it, because that's considered Sybil. But if you've got 2 or 3, it's probably not. You're probably a typical trader or whatever the protocol is, just using it in different accounts. But yeah, I do think that there's different ways that you can manage that. It completely depends on what the protocol is to decide whether the optimal outcome is to have a tiered or linear strategy.
That's a really good point, actually. Like, protocols that are trying to attract like huge quantities of liquidity, something like Juice, for example, on Blast, where they're just like they're wanting to keep raising the caps on so many of the vaults all the time, like wanting to attract like loads and loads of capital. Like, you're going to need those humongous deposits to feel special and rewarded, right? More so than the lower people who are depositing a bit, because if that's the game for your platform, I can see why that would make a lot more sense. And actually, it'd be helpful for us to something to think about. Maybe we could do some type of research on that, because maybe that would inform some of the way that we allocate capital a bit better, depending on once we kind of consider what our bankroll is versus the type of protocol we're interacting with. Legendary, I know you wanted to come back in on this.
Just got one point on that. Just so you can actually work out based on dilution. So say you apply a certain amount of capital, there's ways of monitoring whether you're being diluted compared to the total TVL. And I know people have created spreadsheets for the likes of Camino, because that was the case, and people just pulled their capital off because they realized over time they were just losing their position in that dilution process. So I saw a lot of people move from Camino to Parcl, because the expectation is that Parcl is probably going to be tiered. It's not confirmed, but that's just kind of the general consensus.
Interesting. Okay, very, very interesting perspectives there. Legendary, I know you wanted to come in again. A couple final takes here on airdrop stuff.
Yeah, two more thoughts on that. What we don't or haven't talked about is protocols who reward whales more, like who don't go linear, but just reward the top end more. That you see with point leaderboards where the top 10 or the top 100 are boosted and get more points. I think, for example, Gondi in their point system has a multiplier applied to the top 10 or top 20 most active people on there. Cambria does it in a way by rewarding their top people with the highest wagered volume more. In terms of rake back, in terms of incentives, where you can farm more essence points if you win that Sword of Excalibur, which is a rare thing, and that happens more likely if you duel and wager more capital in their game. So that one thought. And the other thought is that you can also balance things out. And I think Etherfi did a fantastic job at that. They got a bit of a pushback exactly from the Justin Sun situation, who came in last minute and was like, yep, I'm here with 20 mil, and now I get like 1% or 2% of the total airdrop. And then they found a good solution where they were like, look, we're not gonna cut down his airdrop because he put in more money in than everyone else, but we're also not gonna have
his money in future, I suspect.
Yeah, but we're also not gonna have him be in a position where he can dump all of that. So basically, they did find out, they did change that last minute, and pretty sure talked to the Giga Whales on the protocol and implemented a vesting for the top airdrop recipients, where they would only unlock a portion at TGE and vest the remainder over a certain period of time.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. Obviously, people can think on their feet a little bit as different information develops, as TVL changes. I guess that's why people don't want to give any concrete information too early, so that they can maintain some flexibility towards the end. Before, I want to ask you both a couple of final questions, which will be this: what is the next one you are, maybe one or two, that you're looking forward to most? We'll go to Sammy first, then Legendary, but I just want to go to Oxy first. His hand is raised. I don't know if it's a question or a comment here. Oxy, welcome to the stage, my friend. What are your thoughts or questions on Airdrop April so far?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm driving right now,
Yep,
but my comment was on the HOA. So I was looking at those this morning. Obviously, they're down a decent amount since the snapshot, just people assuming that.
So for people who don't know, just for context, Oxy, the HOA is the NFT which gave a 20-something% boost to Parcl points as part of the airdrop program. So carry on.
That's right. Yep, exactly. So I was looking at that because I was like, well, okay, what are these going to do going forward? I'm assuming there will be some sort of incentive to buy these as they go into the next season or whatever it might be. I guess I don't really know. But I was looking on Tensor because I was like, okay, well, what's a short position look like in the side of the price lock, which is essentially an option to either buy a call or short on a specific NFT. Well, the strike price on the shorts right now, there's 79 offers compared to 2 call offers, and the strike price is 2 SOL, which is like compared to the 11.5, I think, SOL, which is the floor price. So it's being incredibly heavily shorted right now. I just thought that was just interesting, that I think there's probably going to be a significant price like pullback that, I don't know, might be an interesting opportunity going into the future of Parcl.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I'm just sharing the HOA on the screen here now for the people who are watching in. As you say, these were as high as, what price were they? Let me try to zoom out a little bit if that's possible. It doesn't seem to be possible at the moment. They were as high as 22 at one point, 22 SOL, and then just dumped as low as the 20th. Okay. Seem to be about 10 or so now. Yeah, I do. We were speaking yesterday about how A, Solana's not working, B, these airdrops are coming through. Therefore, maybe people want to move their capital away. So I obviously think they will want to try to incentivize people to hang around, but there's so much going on at the moment. So we'll just have to see how those incentives play out.
Just for context on that HOA, there's a separate airdrop for HOA holders. So I think the anticipation is that once that airdrop has been done, then there's going to be no use for the HOA, but there will be in subsequent seasons, but there probably will be a further drop in price, which is probably why it's being heavily shorted.
Interesting stuff. Excellent additional information there, Sammy. Thank you very much. Funky, your hand is raised. Welcome to the stage, my friend. Final thought, question, comment on Airdrop April.
GM, my friends, while we're talking about Airdrop April, I know we didn't get to touch on it yesterday, but the Saga airdrop, which I did not know anything about until we talked about it on the show, and I think Legendary had brought it up, that happened yesterday, and it printed. It was actually a really good haul for me personally. And something that I wanted to share with everybody else, that happened very suddenly, and I wish I had known about it. This is more from Cosmos land. We talked about bad kids before. There's these new sloths called celestial sloths.
I've seen them.
And they were minted for 1 TIA.
Yeah.
This was on Friday. They were going for $1,000 on Saturday. They now surpassed bad kids and are going for over 4K because now they're getting in on all the future modular airdrops that are going to be coming. I dropped a link in the Modern Market Discord server, but you guys definitely want to check that out later. But Saga was great.
Awesome. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, I saw those sloths and I just thought, oh God, can't do NFTs on another chain, but definitely amazing opportunity. A quick follow-up, Funky, for the people listening in. What was, because I thought I might have been eligible for Saga. Do you know roughly what we needed to have done in order to be able to participate in that?
There were a number of options. One of them was staking Atom, which I got the most. I got 1,000 just for even staking Atom. But staking Atom, I think staking Avalanche, there was staked Polygon, and there was a couple other games you could have played that you could have been eligible for. I don't know how that was broken up, but I got the most from just staking Atom.
Interesting. Awesome. Thanks so much for bringing that up. As we say all the time, like just so much stuff going on across the board. It's very difficult to stay on top of all of it. So we appreciate everyone and Funky specifically in this case for bringing some extra information to the table. I said I was going to come back to Legendary and Sammy. Top 2 things that people can look out for moving forward. Something you've got your eye on. Sammy first, I think we said, then Legendary.
So Eigenlayer is probably something for me. So staking that within the various like restaking protocols and trying to hit as many of those as possible. I mean, Mocha as well, just because being an ambassador probably got a little bit more exposure than the average person, but that is something I'll be looking at as well. And obviously very Blast as well, pretty heavy into Blast. So rotate that into the Blast furnace, get that Blast gold.
Okay, we do like the gold. Legendary 2.
Why does it have to be sloth? Out of all animals, so I have to buy them essentially. There's no way I'm not gonna be in a sloth collection. 2 things, and not Sammy. Okay, then for me it's gonna be obviously Pixelmon, where I have like a pretty big bag, and I'm waiting for that airdrop. And the second one, and it can't be Blast, and it can't be Eigenlayer.
Something that people can do, or that
something that people can do. Rabby wallet then. Ooh. Like I still think we haven't seen we had Rainbow and Rabby. There's still no real airdrop from a significant wallet provider. And there you can do your swaps. Obviously, it's hard to collect a lot of points on that, but I do think that maybe even the smaller wallets like Rainbow had the point system for a while might be a bit underfarmed. But admittedly, it's harder to farm that than other protocols.
I love it. I really like that point. It continues to be on my list to set up a different wallet properly, because everyone says how good the other ones are as well. I mean, I do have a Rainbow one, but I really want Rabby. Like I literally want it. I don't seem to be able to get it done. Definitely need to look into that myself. Sammy, you mentioned Eigenlayer. That's also one of our other headlines today. Let's do a little bit of just rundown of what happened there, because they've just gone to mainnet. We've got this article from Blockworks talking about Eigenlayer restaking protocol. Eigenlayer heads to Ethereum mainnet. Key information here is that Eigenlayer's data availability solution named EigenDA also went live as an actively validated service built on top of Eigenlayer. The launch came with training wheels of sorts, however, as critical components of Eigenlayer are not set to go live until later this year. A quick explainer: Ethereum is secured by ETH that is staked or pledged to earn yield in return for accurately verifying transactions. Eigenlayer takes this a step further. So we know about ETH staking. This is taking it a step further with restaking. Eigenlayer takes this a step further with restaking, which allows staked ETH to be restaked and used to secure and run AVSs, which are various blockchain-based platforms built on top of Eigenlayer itself. And so I believe it's gone past what was in the headline. Is it 13 billion TVL now? Absolutely enormous. And yeah, pretty huge. Mainnet is now live. Legendary, any thoughts on the fact it's at mainnet now? Thoughts about Eigenlayer moving forward? What's your perspective here?
Still, I didn't have a chance to play around with it yet. I still think it's a fantastic opportunity. It's not going to be the only restaking based layer that we will see. I've seen that Karak network has garnered a lot of attention. That was a bit under the radar. They have garnered a lot of attention over the last couple of days. So there's definitely more follow-up plays based off Eigenlayer, and apart from the typical Swell and other restaking managers, I think that Zerkrit is also something that comes to mind and I find pretty interesting to look at. So that restaking narrative and layers based on restaking protocols is going to stick with us for a good amount of time, I think.
I'm glad you brought up Karak, which is another protocol, another piece of news which was in the snapshot. They raised an insane valuation. I think it might have been $1 billion. Is that what I'd written earlier in the snapshot? We're going to touch on it again in a second. But yes, I agree with you. One thing I wanted to highlight, because I've actually had messages on this separately, is that this idea of there being some risk with restaking. It's like, look, yes, everything we do in the space has risk. Restaking has its own unique risk, and some people genuinely do think that the potential risks are very, very serious with something like restaking. Thinking about how much ETH is now put in there, it creates like a systemic risk. So just from the article, it says some have expressed concerns over potential risks that could stem from restaking, which until now was a totally unproven model for Ethereum security. Any risk that Eigenlayer could create feels systemic, Sebastian Higgs, Chief Operating Officer of Cordial Systems, said. If there is an issue, the knock-on impact could be far-reaching, and so that's why I'm proceeding very cautiously. And I still have more questions than answers at this point. Legendary, final thought on some of the risks involved. How do you manage those when you think about it?
I think we had this one episode where like took almost half an hour to speak about all the different risks with restaking. It is obviously, as I said, it is a systemic risk, but I think it's something I can't change. So there's like not a real point to worry about. Like if anything, I would have a hard time to go all in, say, on a protocol like Parcl, where I'm like, yes, it is a significant protocol. There's a couple $100 million in there, but I don't know anything about how they are audited. Let's be serious on that note. I don't know about the security. But Eigenlayer, for example, and that's not me to make financial advice of that point, it's just a logical thought in my end. If Eigenlayer has a security risk and that black swan event is happening, and all the billions of money that are in there either get stolen or inaccessible or something happens to them, then we have a market-wide impact on that. So then basically you're fucked either way, whether you have exposure to that protocol or not. So I don't worry too much from like that individual perspective about my exposure to Eigenlayer, because I can't change it, and B, it is a systemic risk. With the smaller protocols, however, I do think a lot about my own risk management. And I also do think about like insurance solutions that you have in this space that if you're fast enough, sometimes can make sense. Like with Terra, when I put my money in and farmed that 20% APY, I was very early to it, and Nexus still had available insurance pools for the, I don't know, insurance premium of 4 or 5% a year. So basically I was saying, okay, instead of having 20%, I have 15% on my USDT there, which was a lot back then, which now with Ethereum and other things isn't really a high number, but back then it was a lot. And I was like, okay, if I give away 4% of that and I have an insurance claim in case something goes wrong, that might not be the worst idea. As that protocol grew and grew and grew, that insurance premium went up to, I think, 50% at one point, and then they closed it because there wasn't any point in having that insurance anymore. So this is basically my take on like how I approach risks on smaller versus broader protocols.
I think that's really, really helpful when people are trying to manage their different positions across the board. And again, no one approach to risk will necessarily be applicable to every single person because it depends on your personal situation. So I think that's helpful to kind of just get out there and share one individual perspective. I want to hit the Web3 roundup to get us up to speed with everything else that's been happening in space. Then we've got to touch on ordinals, which seem to be incredibly hot still. So we're going to hit that as to kind of bring the show to a close. We've got a good 10 or so minutes to get into that. But just before we get there, let's hit the Web3 roundup from the snapshot, which is pinned up top to get you up to speed with everything else that's been happening in the past 24 hours. So number one, US has no authority to prosecute DeFi trades, say the hackers' lawyers. This is the story about the Mango Market hacker who does not dispute that they were doing like some pretty shady stuff. But the point was that just in terms of the definitions, it's like it can't be prosecuted by the US. So they said whether it was actually Eisenberg who drained the platform of all of its assets a year ago and a half was never debated. He did in fact drain them. Instead, both sides focused their efforts on Monday on addressing a far more nuanced question: are risky DeFi exploits like the one employed by Eisenberg subject to existing US criminal law? So this is less about the fact of stealing. It's more like, are we even able to prosecute this? Interesting question. Number 2, Sohn conference of institutional investors hears bullish pitch on ETH. Interesting to see ETH as programmable money kind of appearing in these institutional investor presentations. Next, Rune Node announces community-run node token for NodeMonk holders. They say, we are a NodeMonk community-run initiative. Our goal is to create the largest meme coin deployed on Runes. NodeMonks and Node BRC20 holders are the pioneers of this expedition. Very interesting to see. Obviously, Runes are hot at the moment. We're going to talk about that in a little bit more to try to understand what's going on there. And next, real estate trading platform on Sol, Parcl announces end to point season. We touched on that already. Getting into a few more points, USDC launches on Ethereum L2, ZK Sync. Also mentioned Franklin Templeton releasing bullish ETH article on Eigenlayer, calling it the black hole of Ethereum. And finally, as Legendary mentioned, Carrick announced a 48 million Series A valued at $1 billion to accelerate Ethereum restaking. So a very, very valuable aspect of Ethereum development at the moment going on there. Legendary, that is the price action. Sorry, that's the rest of the roundup. I think we said we were going to touch on ordinals, see what's going on there. As you can see, got runestones at 0.08. Maybe we'll go to Sammy first on this. Blobs at 0.054, which was as part of the headline, still running hard. Bitcoin puppets at 0.4, ordinal maxibiz 0.47, R6 0.08. Quantum Cats up at almost 0.4 BTC as well. NodeMonks lower in volume, but still holding a 0.5 BTC floor. What are your thoughts here, Sammy, on ordinals in general? And then do you want to speak to the blob, which seems to be moving aggressively at the moment?
Yeah, well, I've said previously I don't have too much ordinal exposure until today. I suddenly realized that I was airdropped to blob. so I am holding one. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I think Confusion said to us that it's the reason why the blob is specifically running is because it's associated with a potential rune drop or a rune airdrop, which is pretty interesting. I've never had any exposure to rune, so that for me, I'm probably going to hold and just for an experimental process. And I even started looking at Liquidium, so I may have just been onboarded to Bitcoin DeFi. So yeah, it's certainly interesting. I actually quite like the visuals as well.
What do you make of this art, Sammy?
I like it. I actually like it.
What are we seeing for the people who are just listening in? What are we seeing here when we're calling it a blob? It is a blob. It is literally a blob, right?
It is, but I don't know. It just feels very intergalactic, a bit alien, very colorful, smooth moving. I don't know. It's just visually appealing to me. So I have a blob, and I'll probably hold it just to see what happens, really.
Legendary, what do you think of this art? So for people watching, it's kind of like this blob, gently moving, multicolored, kind of, what's the word? It's kind of electric colors. This one's like electric green, purple, blue, pink. Thoughts on the art, Legendary?
Yeah, I think it's from a technical standpoint, and as someone who did quite a lot of art in the early days of my journey into NFTs, and when you have size limitations when it comes to file size, and you have to keep that in mind and get something that's animated and that looks nice as an animation, it's not all pixelated or like stuttery, is pretty cool. Like that I do like about it.
Yeah, I think there's something interesting happening with like Bitcoin art. Like, do you not think that there's actually a bit of a theme arising? Like, if you look at the things which are, well, just for now at the top, you've got something like blobs, you've got puppets, and some like, if you look at Quantum Cats as well, it's like similar color schemes, kind of is it satiric? I don't know if it's satirical, whether it's not taking it too seriously, not taking itself too seriously. Whereas I guess on ETH things, I don't know, maybe the industry is just so new. Do you see what I mean, Head Legendary? Like this, there's a kind of indifference, lack of, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm saying. What do you think?
We're getting very philosophical into the meta art on ordinals. Yeah, I think a lot that we have to keep in mind is just the file size limitation of things and how they can look like. And some have set a standard in terms of the quantum cats and their looks that has been adapted and played around in terms of the color palettes, etc. by others. But I don't have a philosophical point on the difference of art on ordinals versus ETH.
I have an observation though.
Go on.
Like if you look at it, they look a lot more non-fungible than NFTs on ETH and stuff or Solana. It's very much like there's a lot of repetition or slight deviations from one to the next on ETH or Sol, especially with the new collections. But this is just like, it's just very different. Like not one of those looks the same.
Amongst 10,000 blobs, Sammy.
Well, I guess you might be able to find one that looks the same. But to me, just glancing through the page, scrolling through, I can't see very many similarities. There's a lot of different colors being used, different shapes, different flows. It's just a lot more visually appealing. And I think holding one, you're more likely to get that attachment to it because there's not that many that are similar. So maybe people will hold it for longer.
Okay. I mean, I see what you mean when you're just looking at like one screenshot of it. I know definitely what makes it makes people grow an attachment to it. And that's this rune aspect, which I believe as soon as that was kind of announced in the past, I don't know, 24 hours or early in the morning. So here we can see the chart for the people who are watching, and you can see for the people who are just listening. But early this morning, it was still about 0.04, and it's basically up to almost 0.06 now, after whatever confirmation has taken place, which has suggested this will operate like a rune. Legendary, do you think tying this in with the NodeMonk announcement, and again, that's not an official announcement for NodeMonk holders or anyone else who's interested. It seemed to be an announcement from a different company. I'm just going to pull it up actually for the people who are watching in, but also so we just get the information right. Because I don't want to say so. This is done by an account called Rune Node. Oh, that's definitely not the right account. Maybe I tagged the wrong people. Here we go. Node Monks. I don't know. I think I've tagged the wrong account here. I'll try to find it. But tying that into this, Legendary, do you think just like ETH took years to realize, or NFTs on ETH took years to realize that the end state was to drop a token? Do you think Bitcoin's just going to speed run that? Like, look, we did this collection, and now it's basically a rune thing, and you're going to get some more tokens at the end of it. Do you think that's basically what's happening?
I definitely think that. I think if you look at Solana and ETH, you see all the patterns that have played out on ETH playing out on Solana as well, but faster, more accelerated, because there's history to look back to, right? With the first NFTs, you had to explore what's happening, what can we do with them. They were just cool because they were NFTs. But now, if you look at Solana NFTs, like from the get-go, you had different rev share models that worked. You had so many online or Solana casino NFTs, investment group NFTs. And obviously you have mad lads who are building their exchange or building the wallet, have access to airdrops and all that happening like in a very short amount of time. I feel like the first NFT cycle on ETH had so much more time and room to breathe because it was new and exploratory. And now that we have seen the cycle play out to, okay, actually we don't care about NFTs and we want them as an access to tokens or other kinds of physical of other kinds of financial remuneration, airdrops, whatever it is, just make money by having that NFT or price go up. You have that increased pressure that certainly reflects on other chains as well, whether it's Solana, L2s, or Ordinals, and you will see an accelerated version of what we've seen on ETH.
I like that take a lot. I think that's how people are concluding quite often at the moment. Just a quick, interesting either opportunity note point to add, which seems very important on this topic. Thanks, Sammy, for sharing the actual account. It's called Rune Nodes, at Rune Nodes. It looks like, according to Tyler, this is all kind of very recent information, that there's a new hot BRC20 flying around. Node jumped over 200% yesterday to $0.68 and a $14 million market cap. The team took a snapshot of NodeMonks holders last night to reward those holders, a potential driver of this action. And so he shared something else, which said speculation on the airdrop to NodeMonk holders here. Node just took a snapshot of NodeMonks ordinal airdrop incoming, and you know what that means. Same playbook as pups, send Node. So again, just to be completely clear, we're kind of figuring this out live as we go. We don't know 100% if this is what we definitely know it's not official. And we definitely don't know if it's going to run and operate in the same way as pups got completely sent. So interesting to see this one tweet here comparing the two. Pups at $350 million market cap, Node at 10. So that appears to have doubled in a few hours, the Node market cap. Legendary, do you have a quick take here? Maybe we'll go to Sammy actually. Do you have a quick take? Should Node be catching pups here?
I do have a very quick take on that, because I saw that send nodes a couple of days ago, and I was like, or a day ago, and I tried to memorize while you were speaking where I saw it, and then I remembered it was a post by NFT Stats that made me laugh so much. NFT Stats said, my 3-year-old's backpack post NFT NYC didn't notice till I picked him from school. They found the sticker stash in my pocket. Obviously has meme coin sticker on the backpack, etc., but also has a send notes sticker, which I find hilarious on the backpack of a 3-year-old.
That's funny. Sammy, final take here before we close out.
I mean, at this stage, it'd probably be a case of just flipping a coin as to whether it follows pups. So I'm going to say yes.
Fair enough. People like the runes. They like ordinals. They're still hot at the moment. Guys, we hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you so much, as always, to my co-host, Legendary and Sammy. Thank you so much to our speakers. Today, we had Oxy and Funky contributing. And thank you, as always, to all of you in the audience for tuning in, whether that is on X live with us right now, whether you're listening in after on Spotify and also watching on Spotify, because we have the videos there, or if you're watching with us live on YouTube, shout out to the people in the comments there. We've got DJ Tsoy, Alan, Solas, as always. Take care, have a wonderful day. Oh, Sunny's in the comments too. We will see you again. We'll be back with you again tomorrow, 7 a.m. Eastern time, 12 p.m. GMT. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.